Okay, so here's the kitty again. Hi, kitty. Somebody wanted to see the color. Oh, and it was a hornet. It wasn't a bee. So I set him free. I put him in a little clear plastic box and I opened the window and I let him out. But it was really weird. Hornet in December in like 30-degree weather. It's weird. Okay, so the power and control thing, I don't know how much of these psychic development courses are just ego wanks, to be perfectly honest. And I don't know what the motivation is for each individual person to do what they do, because most people don't know who they are at all. And they mistakenly replace these occult workshops, these psychic development workshops, as the thing that's going to fix their life. And so often it's not the thing that they need. They need to reestablish contact with themselves and figure out if maybe no contact is the best thing for their mother, their dysfunctional mother, or their dysfunctional family. Like, maybe they need to look at their family of origin and their lives first before they say, you know what I need to do? You know what I need? A psychic development workshop. Like, that's not the first thing on most people's lists, but what people who are not often not integrated with other aspects of their lives will do is they will use magical thinking and spiritual bypassing as the thing that will solve the problem. And then they want to spiritual bypass and get competitive with the amount of spiritual bypassing they're doing, and they will sit there and you'll see this like round table effect of people being like, well, no, I took this XYZ number of psychic courses. And then the other person will be like, but did you study with this guru? I did. I went all the way to India to study with them. And then it just becomes a pissing contest, and that's not what I'm interested in. So I have some really cool people in my life right now, shall we say, remotely, who aren't like that. They're like, they want to paint on a big canvas too, and I really like them a lot, and I think they're really cool. And I've said before, they're kind of scary, but they're also thinking in philosophical ways that are way more cool than most people do. And they're much more generous. And they think more broadly, and they're more flexible. And maybe that's what makes them so scary, because they are able to envision so many scenarios. And I see a lot of people that are atrophied in general. They don't know how to stretch the list of possibilities and potentialities of any given situation. And I don't know. I think that's why I like security experts, because they're always thinking of the worst case scenario in every possible way that things could go wrong. And I don't know, you live in New York for enough decades, as I have, you see some stuff. You date some people who work in different fields than you do. I've dated, bouncers and actors and all kinds of people. So you get like high-low stuff, and you befriend people from all walks of life, and you get a lot of experience by proxy just by hanging out with interesting people, or quite frankly, fucked up people. Sometimes I worry about, I wonder if people are just hiring me for my level of experience rather than anything psychic I can give them. And it makes me wonder if people are perspective starved, which I think they are. I think it's a fundamental deficiency. It's like a nutrient deficiency almost for some people. And those of us who have lived traumatic lives, just usually trauma doesn't happen in a fishbowl. Like, if you're getting it from all sides, like you're sitting in a bumper car at the amusement park and people are just ramming into you left and right your whole life, you're going to think fast of what to do to fix the situation. Even if it's an impossible situation and you're strapped to a gurney and you can't do anything and they drug you up, your brain is still going to try and think of ways to get out. and I think it makes you more creative, and it makes you more spontaneous. I mean, it makes you traumatized, let's be honest, but it also makes you aware of different things. Like, I wanted to write comedy for a while, and a lot of comedians are traumatized. A lot of them come from horrifically abusive households and are incredibly toxic people in their own right, sometimes, mostly. In my experience, I took some comedy classes about a decade ago because I wanted to write comedy. I wanted to be Tina Fey, basically. And there were opportunities there, but I had no self-esteem at all to speak of. And I always heard my brother's voice in my head. You're a failure. What's the point? You're a loser. And my stepfather, you're a failure. What's the point? And my father, who's a predatory sex addict, who is a narcissist as well, who tried to sleep with me when I was 20. And I was raped in college, and it was my first time. And those kinds of things can fuck with your head. And I was mugged a couple of times. And my mother told me that I should never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, ever fight back or defend myself. And she would repeatedly do this. And her trauma response, because she grew up with a couple of narcissists, was fawn and flight. So she always talked to her. She had a silver tongue. She was a triple Gemini. She had a way with words. You know, she was ruled by the planet Mercury. As am I. I'm a Virgo. But, that was fucked. It was really fucked. And as a result, it was like my friends sucked for many years. I had no support network, and everybody was fair weather. And you had to be really charming and really funny to keep people who are incredibly self-absorbed entertained at all times. So, and my whole life, people were always like, oh my God, you're so funny, which never got me laid. And, and people just like think that your life is wonderful if you're charming and funny. But a lot of times what people don't realize is it's a survival mechanism to keep from being beaten up and ostracized and thrown out of the cave. So that's what I did as one of my survival instincts or abilities. And it works and it works and it works until it doesn't. Until you say enough of this shit. I don't want to do this anymore. And then all those people miraculously disappear. They scatter like leaves. So then you're left to be like, wow, now I have to reconcile all that shit that was piled on top of me. And then you start having recovered memories of horrific events that were of a military-industrial complex nature that are really fucked up and weird and crazy. And then you're like re-traumatized again. So that's other ossified layers upon layers of shit that you have to work your way through for years. And then I was like, wow, how do you make it look so effortless? How do you do it? And I was like, well, I also had a UFO experience and what some would call angelic interventions and communications and visitations. And so you don't know how to integrate any of that shit into a cohesive program of coaching for people, but somehow you start doing readings for people and they seem to think you have it all figured out. And really, you're a mess inside, but you just keep going and you keep striving because you have to learn. You have this thirst, this knowledge for learning what it was that happened to you. And you find yourself somehow falling into this group of people who you later find out are batshit insane, but you don't know any better because your mother has told you for many years, under no circumstances should you ever, ever, ever defend yourself. And you should always be a people pleaser and you should always fawn because that will get you what you want. And it does as long as you're not your authentic self. And then if you're your authentic self, many times people will not treat you well. Well, toxic people will not treat you well if you're actually authentically who you are. If you're authentically, a brown noser, then that's great. But if you're actually not, then that kind of sucks for you. But then you still have people coming to you, telling you how do you do it, Anya? How do you keep your shit together? How are you so emotionally strong? And I'm not emotionally strong. I just have more tools in my toolbox than other people, I guess, from years of having to do that. And growing up in a really, it was a dysfunctional family, but it was also incredibly dynamic and afforded me with tons of experiences. And most people just do not have that level of intensity in their life on a consistent basis for that many years with that many people. And so I have a lot of tools in my toolbox. And that's what affords me the ability to say to people who work with me, say, I have this. Would you consider trying that? And a lot of times it works for people and they really like it. And they come from, what happens with trauma as well is, unfortunately, you get closed down. You get closed down to possibilities and potentialities. Things get very, very narrow and become a very, very small tunnel from which you only have one or two options and nothing else can be used. And actually, rigidity is a sign of mental illness. And so I think part of the reason I was hanging out with these dysfunctional people is because I understood that level of intensity and it wasn't so hard for me. Whereas other people, that level of intensity, they would just walk away from. And these people had full command of their belief in their reality, no matter how crazy it was. And because I had no self-esteem, I admired their conviction. And their conviction carried over and overrode any red flags that I might have about them. Because they so clearly believed in themselves and they clearly had it all figured out, right? And so I was always drawn to really strong, defined personalities. And I don't know, in the process, it forced me, like forging iron, it forced me to have a personality that people were like, wow, she really has it all figured out. When in fact, I don't. I don't know everything. I don't have it all figured out. I just have a lot of tools in my toolbox. And, you know, that conviction is that I saw the shadow side of that conviction, and I'm just now sort of flipping that script and flipping that coin to see the light side of it, the bright side, the way that you can benefit from conviction of your actions. But you have to know who you are to make it work in a really healthy way or in a really determined way that gets things done. And so that's why I always press for mental health. And I press for, well, how are you living your life? And I have to do assessments, even though I'm a psychic medium. Because even though I pick up on stuff, oftentimes what I'm picking up on is the level of intensity that person has, the level of energy they're giving off of one vibration or another. And what I didn't realize for the longest time is, oh, well, yeah, that person might be really empathic and really psychic, but they're also really in a lot of pain and they're needing assistance. And they're just spinning out of control and they don't really care where the assistance is coming from. They just need that attention. Whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, attention is something different altogether. But the challenge now is integrating the psychic with everything else because it's not going away. And yes, there are people waking up. Like, I saw a video with Mark Passio recently where he was like, I don't see this great awakening. I don't see people waking up. I do. I feel it. But if you aren't a healthy, integrated person, and I really respect what Mark is doing, but he also is grappling with, I know, just from what he says, from the tone of his voice, so much anger and so much, I hate to say it, like cynicism, and I wish him wellness. It's not a dig against Mark. I think he's doing a great job. I wish he was able to find more, you know, a supportive group near him. He doesn't feel like it's in the area where he physically is located. But that's just an example. Like, maybe being a curmudgeon comes with the territory if you've had a lot of experience with people who just can't handle the levels of experience that other people have. And if you have a lot of experience like that, and a lot of people around you don't have a lot of that happening, it can be very frustrating.